What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, things escalated very quickly between Epic, Google, and Apple. All of this centering around Fortnite, but what ended up happening at the end of the day was that Fortnite had been banned off of the Google Play Store and the Apple iOS App Store all at once. It's some wild stuff. We're gonna go over this because it was very clearly planned out by Epic to have Fortnite banned off of there so that they could then push lawsuits against both companies. Again, crazy stuff. We'll go over that. Also, Phil Spencer had a lot to talk about yesterday on Animal Talking, as he mentioned different things about plans that they could have taken to get Halo Infinite out alongside the Series XS holiday, and a lot of things to say about Nintendo. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we head towards 500,000 subscribers. And we're going to start today with a big sale going on right now on the Xbox Live Store. You can check out a massive list that I saw True Achievements had put up on their site, as well as just the overall store page for Microsoft on their website now, but there is a lot of games. I think it's over 500 games currently on sale. We're not talking about like little tiny games. I mean, you can see some of the listings here. You have Red Dead Redemption 2 is half off. Modern Warfare is marked down nearly half off as well. Jedi Fallen Order marked down half off. Resident Evil 3 about 40% off. I mean, the list goes on and on here, and it's not even just like all expensive games. You have a lot of games $10 or less as well. And we're also talking about backwards compatible titles, and I noticed that some of the Metal Gear Solids are on sale, so I like to try to recommend a few games during sales. I'm just going to go ahead and point out, especially if you have missed them, games like the Metal Gear Solid HD 2 and 3 collection at $10, so it's 2 and 3, of course, so $5 a piece there, basically bundled together. And then Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, I feel like people overlook that one quite a bit, but it is $5, and that's, that's a really good deal there for a really fun game. Metal Gear Survive, you can skip. Don't even worry about that. That's $10, and even then, I'm like, you're probably better off just to kind of move past it. But a big time sale there by Microsoft. Check it out on your Xbox. It looks like it's mostly geared towards Xbox Live Gold members, so keep that in mind, but certainly worth browsing through. Oh, and check this out. I've been talking about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the video game, hopefully coming back at some point with online support and all of this for a while now, right? I mean, every time Ubisoft has an event, I'm like, come on, Ubisoft. And strangely, there have been a lot of hints towards it. Well, check this tweet out right here. It's from Brian Lee O'Malley, creator of Scott Pilgrim, by the way, saying, Ubisoft has reached out to me. That was it. That was the tweet. This was last night. And since then, we've been kind of waiting. Now, we know, of course, Ubisoft's going to do another one of their events, streaming events, probably next month. They said they would do another one later on in the year, and I think they mentioned September at one point. Maybe that's an announcement. I think Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the video game, would do tremendously well as long as I can get it on all platforms. It'd probably do the best on the Switch. But to see this, because Brian's been pulling for something with this game for a long time now. Not necessarily exactly since when it got delisted, but probably a year or two after that. He's been just, when are we going to get this game going again? Trying to figure it out. We found out it has nothing to do with the music or anything blocking it. So seems to be mostly up to Ubisoft and maybe some of the rights holders around the movies and stuff. But here's hoping we're not too far off from that game finally coming back. Also, we've been talking a lot about the confusion around upgrades, like for the current gen platform, like a PS4 to the PS5. Of course, we just talked about Control Ultimate Edition yesterday. Well, it looks like one game you don't have to worry about is Kenna. We saw this game during the PlayStation 5 event. They put this tweet out right here saying, yes, we don't have the time limit details yet, but the upgrade is slated to be free. This was in response to a tweet asking about the PS4 to PS5 free upgrade for Kenna Bridge of Spirits. And the game looked like a really interesting adventure platformer style game. I have to see more of it, obviously, because we haven't seen an overall ton of it, but it looks good at least. It's gonna be on the PS4 and then of course make the jump to the PS5 as well. It seems later this year we should be seeing it. And it's good to hear that, but it is also kind of annoying because we have to wait for each individual game to tell us how we're gonna do this, how we're gonna bridge the gap. And also they mentioned a time limit. That's something I assume most titles are going to go with, where there's like a limited amount of time, like a couple months, maybe half a year, where you can upgrade your PS4 version of the PS5. And then after that, let's say a year later or something, you want to buy it, then obviously you have to then get the PS5 version, and your PS4 version will no longer upgrade. So we'll see how this continues to go, but good to know at least they will work to bridge the gap between generations with a free update. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start right away with this Fortnite situation. This is crazy stuff. I mean, it just yesterday started out like any other day, and then by the end of it, your phone was probably missing Fortnite in its store. Now, it is missing off of the iOS App Store and Google Play Store. Good news though, you can of course still load it up on your Android device, and if you already have it loaded up, it should still work. So what exactly happened here? Well, randomly yesterday, a new payment option popped up in Fortnite on iOS, also popped up on the Google Play Store as well, or the Android version of Fortnite. But what this allowed you to do was pay Epic seemingly straight up, bypassing Google, I guess their own payment system with Google Play Store, and Apple's payment system. So normally you get a 30% cut. It's been very clear that Epic has not been a fan of that, as they call it, archaic and old 30% cut. Keep in mind, that's the same amount that Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, they all take that same amount. Valve, so it's kind of like industry standard. Epic has been doing a lot to try to work around that, even offering up their own put your money where your mouth is situation, 12% on the Epic Game Store. So once that popped up, people were really confused because it also offered the discount. They didn't necessarily take the same amount. They knocked a couple bucks off. So instead of like $10, it was like $8. It was very weird, but people tried it. It worked. And I guess everyone was like, oh, cool. It must be a new thing that they worked out with Apple. Not necessarily, because Apple was not happy. In fact, they pretty much immediately afterwards, after it started going around, banned Fortnite from the App Store. Eventually, Google followed up as well on the Play Store. And from there, yes, Epic started filing paperwork in the courts. This is, again, crazy stuff. I'm not really sure what's going to end up happening here, but we do have a statement from Apple saying, "Today, Epic Games took the unfortunate step of violating the App Store guidelines that are applied equally to every developer and designed to keep the store safe for our users. As a result, their Fortnite app has been removed from the store. Epic enabled a feature in its app which was not reviewed or approved by Apple, and they did so with the express intent of violating the App Store guidelines regarding in-app payments that apply to every developer who sells digital goods or services. Epic has had apps on the App Store for a decade and have benefited from the App Store ecosystem, including its tools, testing, and distribution that Apple provides to all developers. Epic agreed to the App Store terms and guidelines freely, and we're glad they've built such a successful business on the App Store. The fact that their business interests now lead them to push for a special arrangement does not change the fact that these guidelines create a level playing field for all developers and make the store safe for all users. We will make every effort to work with Epic to resolve these violations so they can return Fortnite to the App Store." And that's going to be interesting because Tim Sweeney does not seem on board with that after he tweeted out that they're going to be basically fighting this. And they put out a video that played in Fortnite, by the way. Hashtag free Fortnite popped up on Twitter as they were pushing for this, even referencing the old 1984 video that Apple themselves had put out. It's just certainly planned out, like they were preparing for this for a while. I mean, they had mentioned that they did not like this 30% cut back in 2018. So they've had years seemingly to prepare for this. And then keep in mind, Epic wanted to chime in, of course, when things were going down with Microsoft and Apple like a week ago, right? Pretty recently, where that was happening with xCloud. Epic didn't seem too happy about that. So who knows, maybe that also pushed them towards, well, we see this as like a monopoly type thing over these cell phones, right? Because you basically have Google and you have Apple, and that's kind of it. If you want it on iOS, you got to play by Apple's rules, and that's it. And they control a large portion of cell phones, right? We talked about 1.5 billion, but keep in mind, they built that. Like, so think about it this way. I mean, they're coming in and they're saying, hey, we want this all changed. Okay, we got to change all this. You guys built this whole ecosystem up and all this. We want the percent lower. And yes, all developers want that, but that is a reason why Apple will fight this tooth and nail to make sure it does not happen, because they don't want all the developers to all of a sudden go from 30% to 15% cut. Again, It's all about the money. We talked about this before with xCloud. Money, money, money. That's what it's about here. Obviously, these are big businesses going against each other. But wow, Epic has become extremely confident now to do this due to the success of Fortnite. Like, that's the biggest thing. So you can still load it up on your Android device. Obviously, you can even side load it if you would like to, but it looks like Epic offers their own installer client and all of that, except if you're on iOS and you don't have Fortnite, that might be an issue currently. They will probably work it out. And even though they are now going to court with lawsuits filed against both Google and Apple over this situation, citing monopoly and terms, they still broke their terms of service and agreement that they originally agreed to. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out and go down for Epic. I feel like we'll probably have some special deal or something cut for them, much like apparently Apple had cut with Amazon for movies and stuff. So we'll see if all of a sudden Fortnite pops back up and Epic forgets about this whole situation. But they've made such a big deal now. Can they take that special deal? We'll see how long the standoff goes on, but it is very odd to see Fortnite being dropped from both big platforms on phones, and I wonder if they incorporate the same thing into the PlayStation environment and the Xbox environment, Nintendo's environment. I wonder how they would feel about that. Do you think they would cut Fortnite off? Let me know about that one down below. Next up, let's talk about Phil Spencer on Animal Talking. This is a really cool idea, by the way. Gary Whitta came up with a really neat, I guess, talk show in Animal Crossing. So he has guests on, they have this cool set in Animal Crossing, and they sit down and talk about different things going on with the guest, and this time it was Phil Spencer. So they talked about all different things in the gaming landscape, as you would expect, and yeah, that means Phil Spencer was in Animal Crossing, hanging out, playing the game to talk about different games. Sony, talked about Microsoft, of course, and decided to also talk a bit about Nintendo. And he had some pretty good words, I guess, about Nintendo overall as a company. This is what he had to say. The pure thing about what Nintendo does is they think about games and they think about their hardware and their platform all as one thing and build those experiences. And I know the teams there pretty well, and I think it's magical the way they're able to create a complete Nintendo experience on their devices. And this experience I'm looking at right here in my hands on my Switch is Animal Crossing. From the Switch running it to the game itself to the way you go to other people's islands. In entertainment business, you know, most things don't turn out to be huge successes, so there always has to be some amount of surprise, but Nintendo is just masterful at what they do. And I've said it before, I think they have the strongest first-party pedigree out there and strength, and they're a jewel for us in the games industry and something we should protect. So I mean, I don't think it's shocking to be like, oh yeah, Nintendo obviously right now definitely has the strongest first party when it comes to sales. I mean, we just talked about Animal Crossing having over 22 million units in a couple of months, right? It has not been long. Came out in March. We're already talking about 22 million sold now. Yeah, Xbox, PlayStation, they're not doing that. Like, that's not happening. And that's just one of several games. At the end of this generation for the Switch, there are going to be multiple 20 million units. There are going to be multiple 30 million unit sellers, and they're not going to be like Wii Fit or anything, Wii Sports, nothing that came with the system, right? These are going to be flat out $60 games that sold over 30 million units. It is crazy. Think about that. So sure, there's probably some envy on Phil's side when he looks at that, because those to him are ways to push Game Pass. So clearly he looks at Nintendo and says they got it figured out. And I'm sure they're looking at them as like the role model for how they can work and build up their first party studios. They have a ways to go, right? But it's pretty obvious that Phil Spencer, yeah, he likes Nintendo. He's talked about playing Zelda on the plane before on Twitter and stuff. So it's not like he goes home and is like all mad at Nintendo and stuff. He probably goes home and is like, I got some time for Animal Crossing. I'll drop the Switch on while I'm here playing. So obviously showing up in the talk show, he has the game and he's playing it on the Switch. Now, he also talks about hardware, and while Nintendo has been, of course, underpowered with their hardware, they're very creative with it, and that also has been interesting to obviously Sony, because they've been looking at Nintendo a lot and been like, oh, that is a cool idea. I like that joystick. Let's put two of them on our controller, right? We've laughed about it, sure. I mean, when the Wii remote showed up with the motion controls, you know, Sony was like, let's do the Move controllers. Rumble, yeah. So obviously Nintendo shows up with a lot of good ideas for hardware that don't necessarily mean, oh, we're gonna push the power envelope like crazy. We're kind of coming up on, I don't want to say the roof, but certainly it seems like it's becoming pretty difficult to not build a computer tower like the Xbox Series X when it comes to power. So being a bit more creative, which is what we're seeing Sony do, by the way, now more and more. Yeah, I mean, Nintendo's kind of working that out now and having creative things like Ring Fit and even Labo, which didn't do too well. Phil Spencer's looking at them and saying, yeah, as he said himself, we have to protect them because they're coming out with some really good ideas that are working to shape the industry overall. Now, going from there, Phil also talked about Halo Infinite, and this is something that I know many others who talked about on the podcast before had brought up, and that was the idea of shipping Halo Infinite in separate pieces. So the campaign, sure, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna play through it. I'm gonna have a blast with it. But let's be real, a lot of people play the multiplayer more than anything. Like, sometimes people don't even play the campaign. I think Sean says he doesn't even play the campaign. He's never beaten a Halo campaign, which blows my mind because some of them are very, very good. So what if they had shipped the multiplayer this holiday and it's free to play and can go alongside the Series X, and maybe it has some benefits if you're a Game Pass member, or it just gets people into the ecosystem to play on their Series X? Well, Phil Spencer also talked about why they didn't go about doing that. It just didn't feel to all of us like the Halo release that we would want. It is a bummer. I know it's disappointing to people. It's disappointing to us. We were looking forward to the alignment of Halo and Series X really as a seminal moment for Xbox, looking back to the launch of the original Xbox and Halo CE. Yeah, that would have been great, by the way, because they already had the throwback, right? We saw the cover art, we were like, wow, this looks like the original Halo Combat Evolved, and it's coming out alongside of an Xbox console. Yes, I'm getting nostalgia vibes, right? This is really, really cool. We see the gameplay, looks very much like old school Halo, maybe a little too much for some of those visuals, but got delayed, so I guess maybe they can work those out. You know what? I will say I would have rather had at least the multiplayer than nothing. Like, I can wait on the campaign a bit, but I play a lot of Halo multiplayer, and I would have loved to dive in to a new one later on this year, but they want everything to be launched all at the same time, and I get that because when Halo comes out, Halo Infinite drops, it's supposed to be a celebration for the Microsoft and the Xbox brand, because Halo is like what we look at the Xbox and see. Out of all their IPs, it's Halo. So that should be a massive event, not one that's broken up into pieces. I get it, and you know what? I'm still okay with them delaying it if it does mean that we get quality out of this game, but also keep in mind that means the pressure is certainly a bit higher now because of it. So here's hoping next year it turns out really well. Otherwise, that's gonna be a whole other situation on its own. And in our last bit of news, I wanna talk quickly about THQ Nordic once again. Well, their parent company, Embracer Group. We've talked about THQ Nordic basically going around and absorbing and picking up a lot of studios, right? There was one year, I remember we talked about, it had to have been 20, 30 studio acquisitions. It was a lot. It was like every quarter they were talking about buying up more and more. They've done it once again. There is one in there that you'll probably recognize, okay? So we'll go over that, but they did pick up a few, and I think, again, they're trying to build up a large studio base so they can have game after game after game come out, whether it's older remasters of games, right? People are talking Time Splitters. They're working on Time Splitters right now, I'm gonna tell you that. So look forward to that one. But they need a lot of studios so they can keep pumping these older style games out, right? Remasters or even brand new ones. So check this list out here. It was made up on Reddit, which made it a lot easier to kind of show these off. And you can see we have a ton of press releases. These are all on their site that they put out. Embracer Group acquires, we'll go through them. Sola Media, Powwow Entertainment, and you can see Palindrome Interactive, Rare Earth Games, Vermilla Studios, Deca Games, New World Interactive, and the big one, 4A Games, best known for Metro. That's right, they picked up the most recently Metro Exodus developers. That is, I mean, that's something interesting because, of course, Deep Silver was also involved in that. So now we have 4A Games. They picked up Saber Interactive. They are bolstering a pretty large studio base going forward, especially into next generation. Yeah, THQ Nordic has very quietly, along with Embracer Group, been building and building and building. There are people who didn't even realize this happened yesterday, and it's been doing that quite a bit. By the time seriously, before we even know it, they're gonna have like 70 or 80 different studios rolling along. They said at one point they had, like 60 to 70 games in development. Yes, they're gonna quickly sneak up on a lot of people as this big time publisher and developer. So keep that in mind going forward. Yeah, just look out for THQ Nordic and Embracer Group because they're going to keep acquiring more and more studios. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Vice195 saying, I love how people get mad over the Mario Collection and Metroid Trilogy not being announced, even though Nintendo never said they were making them. It was a lot of the rumors. The Metroid Prime Trilogy thing, no one saw Metroid Prime 4 getting rebooted seemingly completely at this point, getting moved over to Retro Studios. Nintendo didn't even see that coming. So yeah, it seemed like that got messed up. I know it's not confirmed. It's still a rumor. I'll put it out there like that. But yeah, Metroid Prime Trilogy will probably show up closer to when Metroid Prime 4 is ready to go, maybe next year. That'd be great, right? But the Mario 3D Collection, expect that in like a week or two. I mean, that's gonna get announced and it'll probably come out sooner than people are realizing. So keep that in mind. It's just, these are rumors and people want there to be a Mario 3D Collection. They want a Metroid Prime Trilogy because those sound like awesome collections of games. And when they're not there immediately, they obviously start to get some doubt, frustration, all that kind of piles up. But the good news is, look forward to the 3D Collection pretty soon, like I said. And here's hoping Metroid Prime Trilogy isn't too far off, but as of now, it's still a rumor. Hopefully not like the Grinch leak. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit the like button. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. It went a little longer today, but a lot of that has to do with Fortnite and that crazy situation with Epic, Apple, and Google. How do you think that one's gonna turn out? Because it seems like Epic has really planted their flag in the ground here, and they don't really want to move much. So they have a massive stack of cash. How does this work out? Does this game of chicken eventually end with Epic getting a better rate when it comes to the amount that Google and Apple take? Or do we just go for a while without Fortnite available in those stores on our phones? Also, what do you think about Phil Spencer talking about Nintendo and the way he did? And what if Halo did release this holiday, but only as the multiplayer, or maybe only as the campaign? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.